Hi, good evening, and welcome to the City of Sharonville Council meeting. We're on Zoom once again. We'd like to welcome all of you if you'd like to join us, or you can watch us via Facebook also. I would like to call the meeting to order, and we're going to ask our mayor, Kevin Hardman, to please lead us in a moment of prayer and silent meditation. Mayor, please.
Thank you, Vicki. I want to take just a moment. Obviously, a lot has changed since the last time we met a month ago. There's been a lot of things that are going on around our country, our communities that surround us, as well as our own community, that I think we would be remiss not to acknowledge as we come into this meeting tonight to continue to work for the residents and the businesses and the folks that come and play here in the city of Sharonville. Obviously, not only have we continued to deal with a virus that is taking over various ways that we interact with one another, but we've also continued to see the scourge of racism that exists around our communities here locally and nationally, especially during this time. And what I want to assure this council, ensure anyone else who's watching this, but our community as a whole, is that as a city, we are committed to being one that values the diversity that exists within our city, within the schools that exist within our city, as well as our communities as a whole. And that we value the opportunities to work with all varieties of folks from whatever origins, race, ethnicities that make them up. And we do that through the way that we police. We do that through the way that we govern, and we value all input in making those decisions and doing the right thing by all people that we come into contact. But we especially want to be cognizant right now of people of color that we have come into contact with, not just as a body that makes policies for this city, and makes decisions for this city, but as we continue to police and provide the necessary things that we need to do to provide for the safety of all of those that come into contact with the city of Sharonville. So as we go into this time, as we start out every council meeting, this time of just meditation, of prayer, whatever you want to do during a short moment of silence, as we concentrate and focus ourselves upon the duties that we have as the representatives of our community. I would just encourage all of you as council members and all of you that are watching us tonight or will watch us in replay to just take this moment to also continue to think about how it is you can, make the world a better place. I know it sounds corny, but that's really what we're here to do is to make the world a better place for all that live within it. So won't you please join me as we just take a moment of silence to reflect.
Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you, Sue. Appreciate it. We'll have roll call. Ms. Buhite?
Mr. Tankersley?
Here.
Mr. Wilson?
Here.
Mr. Lippert?
Here.
Mr. Duda?
Here.
Mr. Cook?
Here.
Mrs. Knight?
Here.
Mr. Schmidt?
Here.
Approval of the minutes from May 26th meeting. Are there any additions or corrections to those minutes? Seeing none, those will stand as written and distributed. We're going to move into reports and communication. Mayor Hardman.
Again, talking about some things that have changed since we were here last with regard to our recreation department. A lot of big movement in there as we have seen the opening of our pool, our fitness center, our track. Next week, we will see more openings of the community center itself. Overall, I think the opening has gone well and it has been well received the ways in which we have gone about dealing with crowd control and dealing with a scarce resource. We've gotten a few comments about things that we can do better. We have known that, and we have prepared for that. We knew that there were going to be tweaks that we were going to need to make to our plan as time went on. And we are prepared to look at what we can do to help correct some of those problems. One of the big ones being, and we knew it was likely to happen, but one of them being folks who reserve a spot and then don't show up. So we're starting to reach out we've sent out information to all of the folks that have used our reservation system to say, hey, please be courteous of the folks that want to use these facilities, and make sure you cancel if you are not going to use it. We haven't started working on penalties for folks that don't do that, but and we hate to have to say that we're going to have to start doing that, but if we don't see that and it starts limiting other people's opportunities to use a scarce resource, we'll have to take the necessary remedies to correct that. So what I want to say is what I think the rec department has been saying to all of those that have reservations for a fitness center, for the pool. If you end up deciding that you're not going to use it, as soon as you decide that, please cancel. Give your fellow residents and community center and pool members the opportunity to take advantage of those slots. We're also going to look at, is there a way that we can expand? Most of the complaints have been at the pool, because we have seen, certainly there are periods of pool usage where reservations are sold out. So we are looking at, but then people don't show up. Or there are periods where they're not sold out. Maybe somebody wants to come and use the pool for another hour or 2 hours, and they've already been there once in the day. I don't know if we have an answer to that dilemma yet. The question of why can't I reserve more than one spot if there's openings, because there are the complications with that. But we're looking at that, and we're continuing to look at all the kinds of tweaks that we can do to the system. But we appreciate the work of or at least the cooperation and the patience of our membership, and making it, I think, a relative success over the last week and a half that it has been open. And again, we will continue to look at how we might be able to tweak that as the summer goes on, to try to address some of the concerns that we have heard from a few residents here and there. Chester Road, a lot of big developments this past week along Chester Road. One of them being our own convention center actually is open again for a few events. I know they've had a few smaller corporate events that have taken place. We had a trade show event that occurred this past weekend. And so we're starting to see some business and folks getting in there as well. I also just want to give a big shout out to our convention center staff who, during this time when they have been closed, have been coming in to help all the other departments of the city to kind of maintain our needs for cleanliness and sanitation. And so they've done a really great job of filling in that realm during this time of some difficult needs that we have citywide. So I just want to offer a big thanks to them. But another big one that I think we've been waiting a really long time for is happening tomorrow with the opening of Third Eye Brewery right there on Chester Road. I had the privilege, as I think many of you did this past weekend, to visit and enjoy some of the libations and food that they have there. And I will tell you, the menu is astounding from a food standpoint. I'm not a big beer drinker, but hopefully others of you that are might be able to weigh in on the pros and cons, and hopefully it's all pros of the samples and what they have available on that front. But I will tell you, the menu is fantastic. The setting is just great. The work that they put into creating that space is just fabulous, and it's going to be a great boon for what we want to see in the Northern Lights District. Also, I had the opportunity with a few others to take a latest tour of the renovations at the future Delta Marriott, and they are progressing along very nicely. And I think they're again, the pandemic has caused some delay in their opening process, And it's probably more like end of August, maybe even September, before they'll be able to get off to actually start taking reservations and become a Delta Marriott. But the work inside is fantastic. They've already taken down the old overhang that went to their old entrance, and now are really starting in earnest on what will be the new grand entrance to the hotel with a fountain and the whole yards. But the tower rooms are done. Their banquet facilities are complete. And it's just a tremendous job that they did in turning that place around. And it really will be a great benefit to our convention center in attracting some new conventions to that region or to our region in the coming months, hopefully, as we pull our way out of our current status. Other than that, I'm open to any questions or comments you might have for me, but we got quite a few things to talk about throughout our agenda tonight, and that's all I have to share.
Are there any questions for the mayor? Seeing none, I'm going to move on to our Safety Service Director, Mr. Lucas.
Thank you. Before we get into the legislation this evening, there's one other item in your packet. Through the mayor, we have applied to City Council for a designated outdoor refreshment area, or a DORA. Through Terry's help, we're shooting for a public hearing regarding that at your July council meeting. I just wanted to make sure the public was aware of that, and you are as well. If there's any questions about what was in your packet, I could pull up my screen. If you want to look at the proposed area, if there's any questions, just let me know about what you have in mind.
Anyone have questions? I'm not seeing anyone, Jim.
Okay. Then just moving into the legislation this evening, the first item is an appropriation ordinance regarding our FEMA project. Scott's going to be talking about that a little bit in more detail. Just one item of note regarding that, though, we are still talking with the top-rated firm through our RFQ process. They're having some difficulty getting some answers from OEMA, which is delaying the process a little bit, but we are currently still talking to them about their fee proposal and agreement as well. But I'll turn it over to Scott, who should be on the Zoom meeting tonight.
Yeah, Ordinance 2020-19E does a few things. The biggest of which is appropriate $650,000 in a new FEMA capital improvement grant. It also authorizes the advance of that same amount of money from the general fund, because this will be recouped through reimbursement grants through FEMA, as well as ODOT, that we did some earlier legislation on earlier this year. Will provide most, if not all, the local share. It also authorizes the Safety Service Director to execute an agreement for the design and any other agreements that are going to come up for likely testing or other grant compliance. So I'll also add a quick note. The tax office reopened to the public this week. It's by appointment only. We're getting a fair amount of appointments, a fair amount of walk-ins also. Which is going all right at the moment. As we get closer into July, we'll kind of lose the ability to handle too many walk-ins. So I would encourage anybody that wants assistance to make an appointment and make an appointment soon. It's going well, although it's been a learning experience as well. We're handling, although we do some counter transactions when we have to exchange information and materials, it's being conducted kind of over some Zoom stations that Josh helped us set up in the front offices. So kind of providing some space and some distance as well. So it's going well, but a work in progress. So that's all. Thank you.
Thank you, Scott.
Any questions on that appropriation ordinance?
I don't see any.
Okay. The second piece of legislation this evening is concerning the downtown streetscape plan. John Creech is here tonight, along with Clienger's folks, to talk about that.
Good evening, City Council. What we have before you is actually a recommendation from the Planning Commission, comes to you in the form of a resolution. But just want to give you a little bit of background. I know many of you have participated in a couple of meetings we've had over the past month about this. What it is the last year, our department, Sarah Dirks, applied to Hamilton County. They have a mini grant program, and we were awarded a $25,000 grant to engage a consultant to update our downtown loop master plan. So we went through the RFP process, interviewed consultants, and selected Kleinger's and Associates to be our partner to develop that plan. So the timing of this plan, I'd mentioned this earlier in some other meetings, was kind of right, because we're also updating our comprehensive plan. And as many of you recall, some of those meetings you attended and some of the comments we shared with you from citizens were regarded downtown Sharonville. They wanted to see it more walkable, more diversity of businesses, that sort of thing. So Kleinger set out to update or create this conceptual master plan. They took the actual 2010 plan that was prepared previously and basically took some of the concepts from that and added some new things. One thing I will mention, and they'll talk about it in a little more detail, because this was the topic of some conversation in some earlier meetings, was the idea of a road diet. And basically what that is, and it's something that a lot of communities around the country are implementing particularly in their downtowns, because what it does is it reduces or slows down traffic and makes the area more pedestrian friendly and therefore more susceptible, improves the business climate, basically. We took the conceptual master plan. We took that plan to the Planning Commission. They reviewed and approved it actually on May 13th. We then took it to the City Council Community Development Committee. They reviewed and approved that on the 19th, and just last Tuesday we discussed it at the Law Committee, and it's on the agenda tonight for your consideration. So with that being said, if you have any questions for me, just let me know. Otherwise, I will turn it over to Lynn Nishwitz and Mark Nolt of Kleinger's and Associates to give you some of the details, highlights of the conceptual master plan.
Good evening. This is Lynn from the Kleinger's group. I'm trying to share my screen right now. It says host disabled, participant screen sharing.
Now.
Dean, can we let her do that, please? Hang on just a second.
I just did, actually.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. You should be able to share your screen.
Thank you. Well, good evening. You all should be able to see the Downtown Loop Streetscape Master Plan now on your screen there. So thank you for having me this evening, as I am very happy to present to you the Downtown Loop Streetscape Master Plan. Wanted to mention that the Streetscape Plan is conceptual, and it emphasizes an arrival experience as you enter the downtown loop. It provides for the road diet, which John mentioned, to promote traffic calming, and provides pedestrian-friendly streetscape amenities to encourage visitors to stop, park, and shop in the downtown loop area. So this evening, I'm going to quickly go through the document. So if you have any questions, please let me know. Also, John had mentioned that this plan was designed to really help visualize the designs from various city plans, as well as our professional landscape architecture and engineering analysis and design during the streetscape planning process. The study area for the Streetscape Master Plan, you will see, is located within the red dashed area and focuses on the streetscape of Reading Road and Main Street, with the emphasis on the 3 blocks there in the middle, that is the downtown loop area. On this page is the existing condition summary. For time purposes this evening, I'm not going to go through all of these existing conditions, but we will touch on them in a few pages in a moment where we'll look at it in plan view. It's much easier to describe existing conditions in the plan view. So we will come back and touch on these summary items. Regarding existing traffic patterns, this graphic shows where the existing crosswalks are located at the intersection areas. You'll also see the big fat black lines. Those are curb cuts. So those curb cuts limit the availability of on-street parking. Also, in the red dots with the arrows, that is significant turning traffic. So that is, those arrows and those lines depict the direction that the traffic is going, and also has significant turning traffic and backup issues. This is an existing parking graphic. You will notice that the existing parking graphic has 273 parking spaces. There is light blue on the top that is on-street parking along Main Street. The orange is on-street parking along Reading Road that is not marked. And then the green is off-street parking. So now we're going to get into the existing condition plan sheets. And like I mentioned earlier, these are taking that existing condition summary that was a couple pages back and just notating it up on the plan view. So this is the north end of the loop is where we'll start on page 1.06. You'll see that the roadway is 3 lanes of one-way traffic all along the loop area. The sidewalk pavement is a mixture of pavers and concrete. Having the pavers there really creates a tripping hazard between the pavers and the concrete. The concrete is also cracked in many areas, and the jointing pattern is inconsistent along the streetscape. Also, the curb cuts are not ADA compliant currently. There are many overhead power lines and power poles existing in the streetscape. There's also trees that are too large to be near power lines, and they're not in an organized spacing. Regarding lighting throughout the entire loop streetscape, all of the lamp posts and the conduit needs to be replaced. There's very interesting history markers that are located near the Depot Square. I find them very interesting as they talk about history of Sharonville. Anyway, thought there is that it'd be nice if maybe they were repurposed, if they're not in the pavement, maybe they're repurposed and maybe used in some type of art installation so you can really see them as a pedestrian along the streetscape. And we also notice the site furnishings, the planters, the benches, and the trash cans, those sorts of things are very dated. So now we're going to get into the proposed street diet summary. Again, I'm not going to read through all of these bullet points, but we will get to the proposed street diet in the plan view, and then we'll go through some of the proposed items then. But what I wanted to reiterate again after what John said is proposing a street diet is to, instead of having 3 lanes of one-way traffic, we're going to reduce the road to 2 lanes of traffic to allow for slower traffic, which would allow for curb bump outs to create parking areas, as well as having safer pedestrian crossing and wider sidewalks. So now we'll go into the proposed parking exhibit. This exhibit shows 299 parking spaces. So with this plan, we're proposing 26 additional parking spaces. Now where we're going to gain those 26 additional parking spaces, as you can see there along Reading Road in the blue, we've actually flipped the parking spaces. Right now they're on the east side of Reading Road. We're flipping them to the west side of Reading Road there. As you recall, I mentioned on the existing conditions, those existing curb cuts, there's less curb cuts on the west side of Reading Road, so we can gain some more parking spaces by flipping the parking to the west side of the road. We've also added parking in the dark green areas in off-street parking behind the Blue Goose. So we've added an additional 26 parking spots. Now we're going to get into the proposed plan. So here at the beginning of the loop here, we're just suggesting in this triangular space here, perhaps it's a passive park, if you will, more something that you drive by and notice. Maybe it's an art sculpture, some beautiful landscaping, something in there to kind of grab your attention and start welcoming you into the downtown loop area. And this sheet here shows the north side of the loop area, and we'll start up at the left-hand corner there, where you'll see the median areas here, and then the red line here. This is a gateway arch. If you could imagine, maybe it's a gateway arch that goes over top of the road at Reading Road that lights up at night, that welcomes you into the loop area. And then also we would have some nice landscaping and maybe a potential for art in the median areas as well to really welcome you into the loop area. Now you'll notice when we come into the loop area here along Reading Road that we only have 2 lanes of traffic. You'll see that we have also the parking, as I mentioned, on the west side of the road. You can see the parking stalls there. We also are including bump outs. Those are shown in the yellow areas there. The bump outs, as I mentioned before, aren't just to buffer parking. They provide opportunities to also install rain gardens that could help with stormwater mitigation. You'll also see that we have street trees. They're the green circles that are running around the streetscape. We are proposing there that we would have short street trees that would be more appropriate to be near overhead power lines, and that they would be placed in a more organized fashion, but also placed to avoid blocking views to businesses. We just think the street trees are really a great opportunity to provide scale to the pedestrians and also add overall street aesthetics. You'll also notice on the streetscape, you'll see it's tan. There's a tan color there with almost a gray S there for Sharonville. That's coming off of your Sharonville logo of the railroad tracks. Our thought here is that we would provide new concrete for the streetscape area and eliminate pavers. And the reason we wanted to eliminate the pavers was really for ease of maintenance and also to deter the possibility of differential settlement between the 2 different paving types. So this new concrete would extend the entire way of the streetscape. And we really thought it would brand the downtown area to be something different that you don't see everywhere. And, and enhancing and mimicking the Sharonville logo makes it really unique. Wanted to also draw your attention to the top left corner there. We're also proposing to add a right turn lane that would encroach onto that corner property there, but it would allow for a added turn right lane there onto Cornell Road. So now we move into the south part of the loop. So for the entire streetscape, we wanted to add new curb ramps at the intersection areas to make sure that we meet ADA compliance. We're also showing at all of the intersection areas piano key crosswalks. We thought those would create better aesthetics for the crosswalks around the loop. For our planters and benches, we thought we'd have more of a modern flair and incorporate city branding into the planters and benches, such that you could have a logo, put into a bench or have a medallion of the logo put into the pavement. We would also suggest that we would update lamp posts and conduit for lighting and space them in regularly spaced uniform pattern along the streetscape. Now, if you want to draw your attention to Creek Road over to the left of the drawing, you'll see we're suggesting that the roadway pavement might, again, be more decorative and have more aesthetics in the streetscape. The thought here is that perhaps we could close the road at certain times and have a festival. So therefore, we're suggesting at either end of Creek Road that we would have removable bollards such that we could close down the street for a festival. We are also showing, instead of having 3 lanes along Creek Road, we would have 2 lanes and a dedicated bike lane. The bike lane is on the left side there of the street. Also, we are proposing to have small little pocket parks at each end of Creek Road. And what I mean by pocket parks are, you know, an area to sit on a bench. Maybe there's a bike rack as well as art installations there. I had mentioned earlier about the medallions that I really liked in the pavement down by the Depot Square. This is also, I mentioned maybe they could be repurposed into art installations, bringing it up more up to eye level throughout the streetscape. So that's something else that could be in those little pocket park areas. We are also, if you look at the bottom right hand side of the drawing, you'll see if you turn from Reading Road onto East Sharon Road, through this road diet, we are actually adding a longer turning queue radius, longer turning queue, which I think will help with the overall traffic, keeping it moving throughout the streetscape. Then up to the top right, you'll see that we've got the new roadway design in for the FEMA project there that will help minimize flooding there at the south end of the loop. And then moving on, we have added into the document a phasing plan. And this phasing plan is obviously, it's tentative to change or be reprioritized at the discretion of city staff and council in the future. But we just kind of wanted to make sense of what makes sense from a phasing perspective. And obviously these can be in any order. But our thought was, you can see the light blue there, perhaps that's a phase 1A area where you're looking at the ring, if you will, of the loop. And then you can move into the interior streets such as Creek Road, you know, and Depot Square there in the yellow. And the green is that additional parking area I was talking about behind the Blue Goose. The purple is the area that we talked about at the north end of the loop area. Perhaps it's its own separate phase. And then phase 2 that would be a future study area would be the areas that you see there in the hot pink. But obviously, like I said, this could go in really any order of what city council would like to prioritize. And then the last few sheets show the hardscape palette and the landscape palette, just things that we wanted to talk through that gave us design ideas. You can see in the middle picture here, we've got the piano key crosswalk. That shows what that looks like. You'll see the center picture here in the middle, you know, colored concrete with an aggregate texture. You can do neat things with all one material. So, you know, that helps not having differential settlement if it's all one material. And then the bottom middle picture, that shows an idea for a bump out where you could have a rain garden, some plantings in there. It could also be paved, you know, widen the sidewalk and have additional places to have seating. So it could be either or. This is a site furnishings palette. I was talking about bringing branding into the site furnishings. So you can see the improved logo there, the Loop Sharonville. Perhaps that's put on benches or trash receptacles or planters. You know, you could really do anything nowadays. And I kept mentioning those medallions. So I took a picture, if you couldn't quite remember what that was. I took a picture of one on the ground, but thinking about, like I mentioned, maybe repurposing those. And then those are the light poles. I mentioned that all the light poles and conduit needs to be replaced. So we were thinking of something along these lines that are already out in front of the city building. That creates rhythm throughout the entire streetscape, as well as Sharonville. And then this last page shows different plantings that work real well in a streetscape environment because they need to be hardy, they need to be salt tolerant, drought tolerant, and be able to take those urban conditions. So the planting is real prescribed for those areas. You can see the deciduous trees up to the top left here. We're suggesting perhaps it's an ivory silk tree lilac. They do real well in the urban environment. They flower right about this time, so you might see one out and about right about now. But they're short trees. Duke doesn't mind if they're underneath their electric power poles because they don't grow too terribly tall. So, and you can see some of the shrubs and ornamental grasses. Those are all drought tolerant and salt tolerant. So these are all just ideas and things that we wanted to talk through to for the streetscape master plan. So that's all I have. If anybody has any questions.
Vicki, is it okay?
Are there any questions? Go ahead, Casey.
Yeah, I just got a comment. I think you guys have done a great job as far as the aesthetics and whatnot. I've been in a couple of the committee meetings. I'm still very apprehensive about the street diet going northbound. So I was a no in committee, but I want to thank Mr. Pete Meyer for changing the language in the resolution. I think that allows me to support this tonight. That's all I have. Thanks.
Thank you.
Is there anyone else? Okay, I don't.
If I could just comment on what Casey mentioned, the only suggestion in the change I made in the resolution after discussing it with Jim is that it kind of went without saying, but I just wanted to put it in there anywhere, that this is a concept of a master plan, but nothing in the master plan would be implemented without a specific study and request for a proposal and a bid and approval by council. So this is a general plan, but there are a lot of individual specific ideas that would, as Lynn said, would go in phases, and before any phase began, council would approve it. That's the way I tried to word it.
Perfect. Thank you. Anyone else? All right. Thank you.
I've got a question, just one quick question, if I could. Do we know what the total dollar amount will be on this project?
No, we put some high numbers together. There's a lot of variables out there. Mm-hmm. And like several in the group had already mentioned, this is a concept, so we really need to have adequate survey information and prepared detailed documents to get to a closer number. Plus, we're also going to have, inflation depending on when we start wanting to implement some of these things. So we did take a high level look at the cost estimate, and we're sitting somewhere at about $6.5 million for most of this area that I've shown you this evening. But, that's really taken a stab at it when there's a lot of unknowns. So I'm sure it could vary widely once we get into some detailed drawings and really hone down into the design more.
Thank you. I appreciate
it. Anyone else? Okay, I think you can take it back then.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And then the last piece of legislation is a state required resolution in case we seek COVID-related expense reimbursement. We really don't have that much in reality, but it's just asking you to pass this evening just in case.
Okay, thank you. Are there any questions on that from anyone? Thank you, Jim. Is that all your report? Okay, thanks. For my report this evening, I just wanted to piggyback on the mayor and actually say welcome and good luck to Third Eye Brewery. We're very excited to have them. I loved my tour of the Delta Marriott. Everyone will be very excited when they get to go in there and see the Bourbon Bar, the Starbucks, the state-of-the-art things that they have, their meeting rooms. And they have meeting rooms that you don't even have to use their catering. You can bring your own catering in, which would save dollars for people coming into Sharonville. So it's a wonderful, wonderful facility. They are partnering with Third Eye, and Third Eye is also partnering with our other new hotel, True. So we got a lot of great things happening in our city. Just one thing I noticed out on Facebook, some of our employees are being treated poorly by our residents. And I would just like to say, please be kind. We're trying to work through this as you are, and it's all very new to everyone. So please just be kind to our employees. I really would appreciate that. Thank you. And we'll go on now to our Clerk of Council, Mrs. Buhite.
Thanks. Like Jim mentioned, I just also wanted to mention there are 2 public hearings being set for July 21st. The first one is at 7 p.m. and that's a public hearing on the 2021 tax budget. And following that public hearing will be another public hearing on the DORA application.
Perfect. Thank you. Are there any questions on either of those items? I see none. So we will go to our auditor, Mr. Cunningham.
Good evening, everybody. Hard to believe, are through May of this year. The year is flying by, and we're sitting here in June talking about May. And I remember in January, it seemed like yesterday. So, but we're looking at the numbers through May, and we're about a third of the way through, and we've spent about 27.5% of that. And so we're in good shape there. And really the reason for that, at least a large part of it, is that we have about $1.3 million of general fund expenses of transfers that have not been made at this point in time. And the reason why we haven't done that is because we have the luxury of not doing so yet, because we've built up some large set asides from previous years. We've had the luxury of being able to do that. So as of right now, we're not making those transfers, and we want to kind of see where our cash levels are given the pandemic. So that's my report.
Great. Are there any questions for Mr. Cunningham? Seeing none, we'll move to our treasurer, Mr. Irie.
Good evening. You all should have gotten the information on our reports that was submitted this past week. You'll notice, of course, the income tax is down 9.37% year to date. Motel tax is also down 13.85% year to date. On a good note, we are 42% through the year at the end of May, but again, due to all our budgeting efforts, conservative budgeting efforts, and nearly all of our significant funds, we are actually on pace with our estimates in terms of revenue. We are on pace in terms of collections for each of the significant funds that we have, except the convention center fund, which of course is understandable since the convention center has been closed. But all the other funds are in line with projections, which is very good. And that's all I have.
Are there questions for Mr. Irie? Seeing none, I'm going to move on to our law director, Mr. Pietmeyer.
No report.
Thank you. Okay, tonight we have the pleasure of having our Public Works Director, Mr. Joe Kempe, give his report.
Okay, thank you very much. Let me see if I can pull this thing up here. Nope, the host disabled by screen sharing.
Okay, Dean, we're going to need to share his screen, please. You're now a co-host. Go ahead.
Do it?
Yep.
All right. Okay. Okay. Well, again, thank you, everybody. I appreciate you having me here tonight. This is my annual report for 2019. First screen is the list of all our employees and the 5 years of service under every 5 years of service where they're at. Our average years of service is around 12 years, which is extremely low. That's a good thing. So except for maybe one or two or three people, we're probably going to have these guys around for a long time. So that's good news. The next slide is the equipment we purchased for this year. The big thing is in Parks and Streets Division, we purchased a total of 7 Ford pickup trucks, part of the new enterprise leasing program. And then we bought 1 large dump truck, the Freightliner. Our winter season, as I'm sure everybody is aware, was extremely mild. In fact, it's the mildest season that since I've started here in 2011. I broke down our expenditures, and as you can see, we only had $15,475 of expenses for the winter season. That's about an 89% decrease over the 9-year average of 135,000. So needless to say, very mild. Next slide shows all our capital improvements, repairs throughout the year. Couple notes. We did have a rather large curb and sidewalk program last year, 195,000. Our street program was somewhat average at about under 500,000. The good news is Chester Road and Fields Erdel were finally completed. And that just shows the expenditures we paid out in 2019. Building and land, the two big things there were the roof replacements. We had obviously a salt barn roof collapse. So we got that fixed, as well as replacing the balance of the roof of the salt barn. We did receive a $24,985 insurance payment towards the collapsed part of the barn, not the remainder of the roof. And then the municipal building roof cost $212,000. And then we repaired two parking lots over at Burke Park, the 2 parking lots over there, and then the City Hall parking lot. So that's about it for that. And then we had the Gower Park retaining wall. Other than that, most of the projects were somewhat routine, but some big projects for last year. Just a couple pictures here of the roof repairs. The bottom ones is the salt barn roof. The concrete structures that were replacing the collapsed ones. And then the entire roof is on the right-hand side. And then the municipal buildings on top. Obviously, there's 2 sections to the roof, shingle, and then the membrane roof, the flat part of the roof. Gower Park wall, this is what it looks like completed. And then at the bottom of the page is the Burke Park West parking lot and East parking lot. Recycling. For 2019, we recycled 645 tons. Our revenue from the county through the Hamilton County Residential Recycling income was only $9,979. That's a decrease of 24%. The main reason for that is that more and more municipalities are getting involved in these programs, and the dollars that are used by Hamilton County to spread it out remains at a constant level. So as more and more people are recycling and getting into the program, it's stealing dollars away from other municipalities like Sharonville. So we've seen a decrease over the last 2 years, and that's basically the reason why. And then simple recycling, they only picked up 5,690 pounds, which is next to nothing. We received $56.90. I look for that program to probably end this year. I don't think they're going to continue on. So in other communities, they've already canceled collections. So I expect that to happen soon here as well. And then finally, Golden View Acres. We had 3 new residents move in 2019. Our revenues were $328,894. We renovated 5 apartments at a cost of $24,777. We had no miscellaneous capital improvements in 2019. As of June 1st of this year, 2020, we have 4 vacant apartments. 2 of those we just finished renovating, so they should be not vacant in a fairly short period of time, and we have 2 more to renovate. 2 of the apartments that we had to renovate, we had a really bad water leak there about a month ago, and it really did a lot of damage to one of the apartments. So it's taken us a little bit extra time to get all that fixed up. And then the number on the waiting list, we have 4 different waiting lists, and as you can see, we have a lot of people on our waiting list, so I guess that's good. That's all I have. If anybody has any questions for me?
Are there any questions? Anyone?
Yeah, I do.
Okay,
Joe,
ahead.
Joe, I want to commend you and your department for everything that's happened last year with projects and everything else. And I believe this year we'll be caught up on the street and curb and sidewalk project with what's left, I believe, correct?
For residential streets, yes.
Yes. So, like I said, I just want to commend you and your crew for everything that they do every day to keep the city looking nice.
Okay, appreciate it. Thank you. I'll pass that along.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Okay, Mr. Kempe, thank you. And thank you
Okay.
for all your support for the city. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you. Let me get this out of here. Okay.
Thanks. Okay, now is an opportunity for residents that wish to be heard this evening. I'm going to go over. I do have 2 residents that are in attendance. Do either one of you, Mrs. Volk or Mrs. Joseph, want to speak? All right. Go ahead, Mrs. Volk. You're able to talk with us?
This is Miss Joseph.
Oh, okay, Miss Joseph, go ahead.
Sorry, this is my first time doing this. This is crazy.
No, it's kind of fun. Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you. I actually live over on Lee Marie. I've been a resident for about 6 years. And during this pandemic, we have realized that Lee Marie has now become a cut-through street. And the safety of kids on this street is, we have to watch out. There's people that are going extremely fast up and down Lee Marie now, where I have talked to Officer Taggart and she came out. She did do a speed test. So I wanted to do a quick little thank you for her for coming out and sitting one day. But I wasn't sure what our next steps would be to getting the speed, getting people to start slowing down on our street.
Which section of Lee Marie do you live in?
I live in between LJ and Sharonville.
Okay.
I mean, we were all sitting out one night doing our social distance neighbor hangout like we do every night now almost, which has been the blessing of this pandemic. But I swear one guy was flying up going about 45 miles an hour up our street. One of these kids are going to get hit.
The sad part is that person probably lives in your neighborhood. That's what
we saw them. We found the car.
Okay. Mr. Lucas wanted to speak to you about this. Mr. Lucas?
Okay. Really not me, but Chief Vanover's on this evening. If he has anything to chime in, I know this was on his radar screen as well.
Oh, okay.
I'll just add that, yes, Officer Taggart was up there, I believe, on last Monday. Is that right, Miss Joseph?
Yes.
Spent some
All
time
my
up there.
weeks are blending together.
Yeah, mine too. So no, we've got some other plans to just bring awareness to the speeds up there. First thing we're going to do as soon as I can get the officer that takes care of it back from vacation, we're going to bring we have a device that we'll bring up there and put up on a telephone pole or whatever. It's a black box that will measure some speed. So we'll get a count of the number of cars through there and the actual speeds of those cars coming through there when nobody's watching. You know, there won't be any police car or anything like that sitting out there. It'll just be a true measure of the speeds and how many cars are coming through there, how many are speeding.
Okay.
That. We also have our speed signs that actually display, you know, your speed limit. So it's the ones that you've probably seen before that flash at you and say, hey, the speed limit's this and your speed is whatever it may be. So
yes,
we'll do what we can there to bring some awareness to, you know, whoever's cutting through there or the residents that are driving through there too fast.
Okay.
And we'll kind of go from there. I mean, I think we've stepped up some patrols. I mean, I've asked our patrol division to step up some of those kind of things in the area to see what we can do to slow people down.
Perfect. Yeah, I've seen a couple more than normal, but yeah, it might be like one a day or something like that. But it's when they come around that bend and then they just hit that straight shot all the way from Sharonville, and they just hit that straight shot up to LJ. Like you can hear them gun it around the corner almost. And that's where, you know, there's 4 houses with little kids here. So
I don't have a quick answer, but you know, it's what we would do for anybody that has these type of issues. You know, we're going to try to slow everybody down. We're going to collect some data and see where we're at and see if we can't help with the problem.
Great. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Mrs. Joseph.
Thank you.
Mrs. Volk, did you want to speak this evening? Okay, she's not answering, so we will move on to our council committees, community development. Mr. Tankersley?
I have no report.
Thank you. Community services, Mr. Lippard?
Very brief report. We met on June 3rd, and we basically, Mr. Kempe had a very brief report, but we spent the majority of the time going over the new procedures with Mr. Blomer in regards to the recreation center and the pool. Pool wasn't open at that point yet, but just getting an idea how that was going to work, and it was a very productive meeting. Written reports for Public Works from Mr. Kempe and Recreation for Mr. Blomer should be on file with Ms. Height. Yes, she's giving me the thumbs up. And we have no July meeting. We are dark in July. Thank you.
You. Budget and finance, Mr. Cook.
Thank you. No report this evening.
Okay, honored citizens, Mrs. Knight.
I don't have a report, but I would like to honor all our Sharonville businesses tonight, because I know a lot of the restaurants are having a hard time. And I just would love to put out that even if you don't feel comfortable going into the restaurant or sitting outside the restaurant, get a carry out. They really are seriously hurting, because I just learned from Blue Goose. Kevin said that a lot of the Ford people used to come in there. Well, Ford will not let them leave once they're there. So they've lost all that business. And then they have down, you know, and they had Sports Plus, had all those tournaments and stuff. They got a lot of people there. Plus there's no sports on TV. So I just would love for people to just hit all our Sharonville businesses. If you decided to go to Blue Ash or Reading, maybe think about Sharonville. So that's who I'm honoring tonight for this month. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Knight. Law and Public Safety, Mr. Schmidt.
Thank you. Our next Law and Public Safety Committee meeting will be on July 14th, and I'm going to assume it's virtual. That will be at 4 o'clock, July 14th. Thank you.
Thank you. And I don't believe we have talked about a July meeting in person. I know we're just getting opened up, so I think we'll just discuss that and email and then let everyone know what's the best practice.
Thank you. Yes, true.
Okay, thank you. Rule suspension motion for first and only reading for ordinance 2020-19E, resolution 2020 R11E, resolution 2020 R12E. Is there a motion? So moved
Here.
by Mr. Cook, second by Mr. Wilson. All those in favor, yes.
Yes.
Yes. Yes.
Those opposed, no. And that motion does carry. We have no new business or no unfinished business. So we'll move on to our new business.
First and only reading of ordinance 2020-19E, amending 2020 appropriations and authorizing execution of design agreements for FEMA capital improvement grant.
If everyone could please turn on your mics. Is there a motion to pass ordinance 2020-19E? So moved by Mr. Lippert, second by Mrs. Knight. Is there any discussion on this? Seeing none, roll call.
Mr. Tankersley,
Yes.
Mr. Wilson,
Yes.
Mr. Lippert,
Yes.
Mr. Duda,
Yes.
Mr. Cook,
Yes.
Mrs. Knight,
Yes.
Mr. Schmidt.
Yes,
Ordinance 2020-19E has been approved. This is a first and only reading of emergency resolution 2020 R11E, a resolution supporting and approving the City of Sharonville Downtown Loop Conceptual Streetscape Master Plan.
Is there a motion to pass resolution 2020 R11E? So moved by Mr. Wilson. Second by Mr. Cook. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, roll call.
Mr. Tankersley,
Yes.
Mr. Wilson,
Yes.
Mr. Lippert,
Yes.
Mr. Duda,
Yes.
Mr. Cook,
Yes.
Mrs. Knight,
Yes.
Mr. Schmidt.
yes,
Resolution 2020 R11E has been approved. A first and only reading of emergency resolution 2020 R12E, resolution affirming that any funds applied for and received from the Coronavirus Relief Distribution Fund are to cover costs allowed under the CARES Act.
Is there a motion to pass resolution 2020 R12E?
Here.
So moved by Mr. Tankersley, second by Mr. Lippert. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, roll call.
Mr. Tankersley,
Yes.
Mr. Wilson,
Yes.
Mr. Lippert, Mr. Duda,
Yes.
Mr. Cook,
Yes.
Mrs. Knight,
Yes.
Mr. Schmidt.
yes,
Okay, resolution 2020 R12E has been approved.
All right. One other opportunity. I'm going to go over here to Mrs. Volk and see if she would like to speak again.
Hey,
Mrs. Volk.
Are you unmuting her or, oh, there you go. I think you,
Yeah, I am unmuting her.
Okay.
And she's muted. So I'm assuming she does not wish to speak with us this evening. Thank you. Is there any other matters tonight to be heard before council? Mr. Cook.
Thank you. Just quick comments. I went to the rec center this Saturday, first time since the closure. First thing I did is they took my temperature. They held up a card, reviewed all the different, I guess you could call it symptoms, see if I had any. And then I went ahead and scanned in and went on my way. At the time, Saturday morning, 9 or so, there's only 2 other people there. And so there's no problem social distancing. They had plenty of hand sanitizer, hand soap, and then the wipes. So it was a great experience. It felt great to be back. And I felt very comfortable. The other comment, Third Eye, great food, great beer. I did the sampler. It's some great flavors, but I highly recommend the French fries. with, I don't know what the sauce was, but there's some bacon. I don't know if that was pot roast on it also. It was delicious, so highly recommend that. Thank you.
Now I'm hungry. Thank you. Anyone else? Mr. Wilson.
Yes, just wanted to say a special happy anniversary, silver anniversary to Princeton Superintendent Tom Burton and his wife Franca. And then also that I'm looking forward to getting over to Third Eye Brewery tomorrow night for the opening. Come and visit.
Well, I won't be there till next week due to being out of town. So I will put that invite out to some of you later. Mr. Lipper, you wanted to speak.
Yeah, I just want to piggyback off of what Mr. Cook had to say. As far as the rec center, some of the communication from Mr. Blomer. So the time slots for the pool, some of those are full up, but they haven't had time slots for the track or rec center fill up. Basically, the use of the track rec center has not returned to pre-COVID levels. So it's being underutilized. If you want to go work out, there are slots available. That's all.
Perfect. All right. Anyone else this evening? I don't see anyone. Is there a motion for adjournment? So moved by Mr. Lippert, second by Mr. Wilson. All those in favor, yes.
Yes.
Those opposed, no. And we do stand adjourned. Thank you very much.
Everybody, good night.
Stay safe.